Thank you very much, Professor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I now have the pleasure of inviting a distinguished personality to address you all, but he hardly needs any introduction. But as complicates my bounden duty, ladies and gentlemen, he holds a master's and a doctorate in economics from Boston University, United States of America, a master's degree in development economics from Williams College, USA, and a bachelor's degree in economics and an MPhil in economics from the University of Colombo. He has been in the civil service for the last 3 decades, and prior to his appointment as a Secretary to the Treasury, he was Deputy Secretary to the Treasury from 1997 to 1999, Director General Department of Fiscal Policy and Economic Affairs in 1995, and Economic Advisor in 1990. He has held several senior positions in the Central Bank of Sri Lanka before joining the Ministry of Finance and Planning. In addition to the office at the Ministry of Finance and Planning, he has also held office as Chairman Public Enterprises Reform Commission, Senior Policy Advisor, Ernst & Young, and as consultant to the IMF and the World Bank on country assignments. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure in inviting our chief guest this evening to address you all, the Secretary of Ministry of Finance and Planning, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara.
Professor Lakshman Watwala, founder, president of CMA, Professor Felicitates, the Director Postgraduate Institute of Management, Dr. Vijay and distinguished members in the panel, and also the distinguished participants here this evening. I'm indeed pleased to join this important occasion in which CMA Founders Day and the members are facilitated, and I was delighted to hear that over the last almost 20-year period, how this important body has nurtured our professional disciplines in this country in line with the emerging economic development. I think that Sri Lanka has reached a stage which will be driven by professionals. Sri Lanka no longer remain a poor country. Despite many adversities, difficulties and turmoils within and outside the country, in a context, our journey has not been unsatisfactory. Country has approached a middle-income country status, free from conflict and greater prospects, with Asia is entering to a center stage of global economic development. While our own country is debating many ideologies, many economic indicators, strategies, and the role of the private sector versus public sector and politics, one thing we all need to recognize is Sri Lanka has to address new challenges. One of the most important challenges in my view is that Sri Lanka is no longer a labor-intensive, labor-abundant country. Whatever reservations people may have on statistics, Sri Lanka now has unemployment less than 4%. And that 4% too may not be explained by uneducated, illiterate labor. If at all, it is still because of the mismatch in education and liberal arts young students, but essentially education and the workforce is shifting remarkably in a different direction. If opportunities are not available here, our youth, regardless of their income status, are looking for opportunities both within and outside the country. This indicates that what we followed in 1977, when the economy was open, and then after 2 decades, re-engineering certain sectors to move on the industry direction in mid-90s, and then at present to a much more service orientation and value creation activities, country need to think of more skills-driven, managerial-driven, productive economy. Probably preoccupying the traditional sectors may be a fundamental mistake. With our knowledge or without our knowledge, though they may grow, such as the plantation economy, such as the traditional agriculture, such as the traditional manufacturing industries, traditional banking and services activities, they may be lagging soon in place of new sectors and new activities that may surge within those sectors. We can see how primary agriculture is shifting remarkably in the direction of high value products. Similar trend is seen even in plantation crops. Banking and finance, insurance and other products are no longer the traditional textbooks, banks and similar products. So in that context, I think if Sri Lanka need to grow, this kind of bodies need to be very dynamic, very active, and much more instrumental to mobilize our youth, to position them to become the global product. Though sometimes we may overlook our own experience, one must remember how successfully non-value-added industries in this country have become value-added industries with remarkable diversification in markets, products, designs, and the apparel industry is a classic model for somebody to study very seriously. Equally, it is important for people to see how one-time housemaid foreign employment economy has turned to a more skilled, more professional employment opportunities globally. Today Sri Lanka has, with such a structural shift, has made a remittance economy as single largest foreign exchange earning activity in this country. If one traditionally preoccupied with conventional indicators such as trade deficit, balance of payments, budget deficit, and other macro indicators, and tea, rubber, coconut kind of activities, we may not see the brighter opportunities that this economy is showing, not only to ourselves, but even to the global economy. So therefore, in this Founders Day celebration, and the way you facilitate your founder members, what the message I can think of is the much more dynamic role Sri Lanka may have to play, and the CMA's role in that context in the next decade. However, the risks that Sri Lanka may have to manage, and however the risk global economy may go through in the next several months, the world is going to be richer in another 10 years and much richer than the world that probably we are familiar with. That richness is not just per capita income or the GDP, much more different demography and the different lifestyle and the different consumption pattern, and above all, in different part of the world which was considered poor 30 years ago. China has emerged the second largest global economy, and that is an excellent blend of market economy with disciplined environment to reach a particular stage in development. And that has left behind all the differences in ideologies and has adopted fundamental principles for economic development. And that is where China may move in the next several years, and may be a challenge for the whole economy, whole global economy, by becoming the world's largest global economy in the next 7 years. What Sri Lanka should ask in that environment, where would be India? Where would be Indonesia? Where would be Vietnam? And where would be South Asia? And on the other side, what kind of a country would be Japan? What kind of a country is South Korea? And in the smaller island nations, what role Hong Kong and Singapore would play? And whether Sri Lanka is the still silent hub that may take over part of the role none of these countries could play. And that is where professional mind should go in the next 10 years. And I hope CMA, together with all other professional bodies in legal, in medicine, in engineering, in architecture, in banking, in finance, and make Sri Lanka the knowledge provider to the global economy that is seeking such knowledge from somewhere. And Sri Lanka has the advantage, and that advantage requires fundamental reforms in our education. And the education need to respond not by providing employees, but by providing employers, value creators. And that is where management and business must work together. This nation has a vibrant private sector. This nation has a vibrant small and medium economy. In every single sector, these SMEs and large enterprises are still operating in silo environments, and they need to be integrated to become cost effective and create much more meaningful values and provide such products not just to Sri Lankan market but also to the global market. And I hope the skills and the training that this institute would provide will be a critical input in that process, and I propose CMA will play a much more integrated, multidisciplinary role to put our professionals in one discipline and create Sri Lanka a hub providing various service firms in accounting, in legal and other areas, so that global economy may turn to Sri Lanka the way we look at some of the professional firms in Singapore, some of the professional firms in advanced countries in future. And I hope Professor Patwala's initiative will provide such leadership, and I can assure the government from its part will extend the support to create such a dynamic transformation in Sri Lanka. With those remarks, I congratulate entire founder members for their visionary initiative taken, and also for those who participated in this initial process, and the students who placed their confidence in this promising field for their successful career. With those remarks, I conclude my speech by thanking Professor Lakshman Vatawala for pulling me out on this Friday evening for this valuable event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking address, your sincere wishes, and your words of encouragement. Thank you once again. So I understand you've got a very busy schedule. Before you leave, sir, can I have you to present some very special awards? The first, ladies and gentlemen, is in appreciation of his invaluable service as the founder president of CMA. It's a grand salute to the one and only Professor Lakshman R. Vatawala. So we also recognize our founder governing council members in Mr. M.B. Ismail, also Mr. S.C. Safarasinghe, recognizing more of our founder governing council members, Mr. F.H. Primanasinghe, also Mr. T. Someswaran, and can I please invite Mr. Chandima Gunawardena to collect this award on behalf of his late father, Mr. T. P. Gunawardena. The special award is also presented to the Founder Advisory Council Chairman, Dr. G.C.B. Vijayasinghe. We also recognize our governing council members in Mrs. M.R.N. Kasichetti, also Mr. H.M. Hennaka Bandara, Mangala Fonseca, and not forgetting our CMA Founder staff members, Mrs. Shanti Maheshwaran, and Mr. Kapila Gunasekara. Thank you very much, Dr. Jacinda, for presenting us for your presence here today. This is our way of saying a big thank you. Well, we continue with our program, and now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the CMA Founders Day oration, it's my pleasure inviting the former senior partner of KPMG, a chartered accountant, former chairman of external audit of the International Monetary Fund. He has a doctorate from PIM Sri Jawaharlal University. Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure in inviting the Chairman, CMA Advisory Council, Dr. GCB Vijay Singha.
Professor Vatawala and members of the Governing Council of the Institute of Certified Management Accountants, I thank you for the privilege and honor to address you this evening. Also, I'm very happy that the head of our public service, Dr. Jayasundara, was present here today in honor of yourselves. The subject I've been allotted is the changing role of the management accountant. A French philosopher once said, more a thing changes, the more it remains the same. I've got the thing in French, but I dare not say so in case people are here who can speak French and know my pronunciation. But it's not so with the management accounting, as we shall try to see. First, let me define a profession. First, we must convince ourselves the starting point of all this is we are a profession. According to the former Supreme Court Justice O'Connor of the USA, one distinguishing feature of any profession, unlike other occupations that may be equally respectable, is that membership entails an ethical obligation. Now keep this in mind. It entails an ethical obligation to temper one's selfish pursuits of economic success, adhering to standards of conduct that could not be endorsed either by legal fiat or through the discipline of the market. Both the special privileges incidental to membership in the profession and the advantages those privileges given the necessary task of earning a living are means to a goal that transcends the accumulation of wealth. The recent global financial crisis has invited many a lively debate on the causes of this. I think most of you all, accountants don't have many views on this, but the economists do. To pose a rhetorical question, was it at the behavior of the banks, the investment advisors, the rating agencies, the accountants? Yes, all of them to have entered, but listening to the various debates on the subject on the BBC and CNN, etc., of the cognoscenti, people who know much more than I do, there was too much emphasis on the following: stakeholder and shareholder value. You read every day in the papers. Profit maximization. Market share monopolism. Market share, that is, you increase our market share. Those are norms of success. But are these to be jettisoned? Of course not. But what they say is that there is a relative absence of emphasis on matters that really do also matter as much as profit optimization, shareholder value, etc. What are they? One is ethics and morals. Two is the preservation of the environment. And ethics and morals defined. It's as old as 2,000 years, or 2,508 Western morals, I mean. How do you define morals? I can't. The ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, and it can vary with all environments, schools, countries, etc. So I settled on one definition on what morals are. I quoted Polonius in Shakespeare's Hamlet giving advice to his son, Laertes, who was going as an ambassador to France from the court of Denmark. And what did he say? The last sentence. Core morality is this above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night as the day. Thou can thence not be free, false to anyone. So you think about that. Other one is preservation of the environment. That you have heard a lot about. I won't deal with that. Global warming, etc. Then social equity and social equality. And these should have a long-term vision. The business schools are having a short-term vision, profit orientation, wealth maximization, etc. But here they say we fail to think generation-wise. In other words, we think in our 60-year lifespan or whatever, it's not lifespan, working lifespan, and forget about everything else. The other one is a new one, which comes the last 3 or 4 years, it's not been readily taught, is genetic predisposition. What the devil is that? I don't know. But I'm told that genetic predisposition is that all men are not born equal. There are ways of, you've got a genome that measures your intelligence, your skill of your hands, your feet. Now, the world acknowledges intellect, and they pay, I suppose, somebody like anybody on the head table who's got twice the intellect that I have got should be paid more than double what I got paid. It's not so, they say. Finally, you must, the accountants themselves, when these are recognized, try to make compensation for genetic predisposition. In other words, not in our lifetime, but in 50 years' time, you all have a genome theory. Otherwise, it is admitted that ethical behavior is relative in culture, environment, and circumstances, etc. But that these are due to the inherent nature of human beings, admitted, alluding to the excessive ambition, greed, pride, lust for power, recognition, etc. Someone asked me when I was in California, have you got a gene for greed? I said, yes, you already know it. We can identify it. Can you spot it in an individual? Yes, we are trying, getting there, not yet. So you will know how much greed you have, inherent greed you have, in other words, where you can go wrong. Strong dominant personalities with an excess of these tendencies tend to take control of entities and subvert the consultative and democratic processes necessary for good governance. Social equity and social equality are twin brothers. Schemes for the further achievement should provide for equality of opportunity, access to education, healthcare, distribution of wealth. You heard all that just before. But also genetic, that the above may seem difficult to practice, but the absence of social equity, social equality is identified currently as one of the main causes of the societal upheavals all over the globe today. Otherwise, no equitable distribution of wealth, etc., of power, of influence, etc. How we achieve that, we don't know yet. Now, poverty alleviation, Soros, the famous financier, was asked to address the Davos Business Forum. He was given 20 minutes like myself. He walked onto the stage and he said, was asked one question, what is the cause of this financial crisis? He didn't speak for 20 minutes. He meant, this may be apocryphal, I'm not sure, this CNN reported. He used only one word. The cause of this financial crisis, global financial crisis, is due to poverty. That's all. And walked off the stage. food for thought, isn't it? So in the long term, and again thinking generation-wise, how do you equate poverty? Because you're dealing with people who are not equal. Now, before Udit and I were looking at the program, and we sort of decided that I decided we should cut short our speeches a little later, and the future. And I have, at this stage, having said what I have to say, I would like to end my talk by quoting or repeating a poem by, I think, one of Asia's greatest poets. But it is relevant to our part of the country, our part of the world, as well as the rest of the world. You know the famous Bengali poet, Rabindranath Tagore. This is what Tagore said at the end of a discourse on social equity. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way. Think of every line. Clear stream of not lost its way. Into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action.